Hey everyone, this is Six Path Weeb, welcome back to the channel. Today, we're diving into another exciting chapter of our fanfic series. What if Naruko became a rogue shinobi? Part 8. Quick disclaimer, this content is purely for entertainment and discussion. I don't own any of the anime footage featured, all rights and credit go to the original creators and copyright holders. Alright, let's jump right into it. With the Inferno twins. Who has summoned us? Both majestic foxes roared in unison before turning to look at each other, their expressions mirroring curiosity. Hey, brother, they greeted, tapping their tails together in a gesture much like a friendly high five. The 6 Naruko clones who had summoned them quickly dodged the small sparks of fire that burst out from the impact. Please, watch the flames. The first clone called out with a twitch of irritation. The 2 foxes shifted their gaze upward toward the speaking clone, now facing 6 determined and slightly exasperated versions of Naruko. Naruko-sama? Asked one of the foxes, only to receive a collective shake of the head from the clones. No, we're her clones, the lead one explained, then pointed toward a dark purple barrier in the distance. With our luck, and knowing her, she's probably inside that barrier facing off against Orochimaru alongside the Raikage and the others. Then why summon us? The younger twin asked as he observed the village. He tilted his head slightly at the sight of the still villagers. Why are those people in dark blue watching us with such unease, while the ones in gray and tan look more confused? Because we're in the middle of an invasion, one clone answered. Those in dark blue are wary because this is the village where Kurama appeared 13 years ago before being sealed inside Naruko. At this, the foxes growled softly and the surrounding air shimmered with rising heat. Relax, this village will face its reckoning eventually, but not today, the clone continued calmly. Right now, we need your help with the 3 giant snakes causing chaos in the village center. The elder twin looked intrigued. Snakes attacking the village? Maybe we let them be and watch the show. No, the lead clone replied firmly. When the time comes, we'll be the ones to bring justice, alongside the entire Fox clan. For now, though, let's deal with the snakes. Sound good? The 2 foxes exchanged a mischievous look before nodding in agreement. Since you're just clones, you may want to keep your distance to avoid being dispersed, the elder twin advised as the clones leapt back into the treetops to observe safely. Shall we, little brother? Indeed, brother. Let's begin, replied the younger twin, and together they charged toward the serpents with eagerness in their eyes. Dash. With the clones. You all realize those 2 will probably cause more chaos than the snakes, right? One clone commented dryly, and the others nodded knowingly. They might tear up half the village, but as long as they leave it standing just enough for us to finish the job later, I'm not too concerned, said the first clone with a small grin. Our task is done, let's notify the real Naruko. The others nodded again before disappearing in puffs of smoke. The first clone was about to do the same, but paused. Wait. I sense a familiar presence nearby, she murmured. Naruko did mention she wanted to speak with him. I'm sure she won't mind if I handle it. With that, the clone dashed off toward the source of the energy. Dash. With Kakashi and Kurenai. Kurenai, behind you, Kakashi shouted, hurling a kunai just past her shoulder. It struck an approaching enemy, stopping their attack. Appreciate it, Kakashi, Kurenai said, spinning and delivering a powerful kick to a group of enemy ninja. She quickly glanced at their students. Shikamaru had just immobilized a group of attackers, while Kiba and Choji followed up with their own techniques. As she assessed the field, something felt off. Turning to scan the area, she saw Kakashi fending off 2 enemies with a lightning technique, while Asuma skillfully handled others with his blades. Then it hit her. Kakashi. She called out, catching his attention. Where are your other 2 students, Sakura and Ino? Kakashi blinked, then looked toward the Genin still fighting. Realization dawned, and he frowned beneath his mask. Oh no. They better not have gone off on their own, he muttered, kicking an attacker away. Dash. With Anko. I'll give those agents one thing, they're good at covering their tracks, Anko muttered as she raced through the treetops. Too bad the Uchiha left a trail even they couldn't erase. A small green snake with black markings emerged over her shoulder. Mistress, the Uchiha's trail is about 200 yards north. He's on the move again. If memory serves, they're nearing the border between the Fire and Rice countries. Rice country? Anko echoed, narrowing her eyes. Her mind processed the information quickly. That's where Otto village must be. She pushed her pace. Rice may be neutral, but no ninja is allowed in without informing the daimyo. If Oto is based there, then only their ninja can move freely. Clever, Orochimaru. Very clever. Minutes later, the trees gave way to open plains marking the border. They've already crossed, Anko murmured, spotting a glint on the ground nearby. She knelt down, picking up a scratched Konoha headband. So he really left the village, she said quietly. Her thoughts were interrupted by her summon nudging her again. Mistress, 2 other chakra signatures are about 100 yards southwest. They seem to have been following you but lost your trail. Their chakra levels are quite low, likely new trainees. Thank you, Nioi. I'll take it from here, she said. The snake gave a respectful nod before disappearing in a puff of smoke. Now let's see who thought it was a good idea to follow me. With Sakura and Ino. Great job, Ino, Sakura said, her tone irritated. We lost her, and now we're completely off track. Oh please, like you were doing any better, forehead girl, Ino snapped back. You're a kunoichi too, maybe help instead of just complaining? I specialize in genjutsu, not tracking, Sakura replied, clearly annoyed. The two continued their search, leaping through the forest, their rivalry flaring even in the midst of uncertainty. I'm not much for tracking either. My father says I'm better suited for intelligence gathering, Ino said with a confident smile, turning toward her teammate. And if you're really into genjutsu, why don't you know how to use any yet? She teased, grinning as Sakura's face tightened with frustration. Oh yeah? And how exactly are you supposed to be an interrogator when you've only learned one jutsu from your clan, and you can't even handle a minor injury without freaking out? Sakura snapped, glaring at her blonde rival. The two aspiring kunoichi continued to squabble back and forth, completely unaware that they were being observed. Up in a nearby tree. Seriously? These two are the ones who thought it was a good idea to follow me? What on earth were they thinking? Thought Anko as she watched the arguing Jinan. Okay, this is getting ridiculous. Time to put an end to it. She leapt gracefully from her perch, landing directly in front of the startled pair. What do you two think you're doing? She asked firmly, her sharp gaze instantly freezing both of them in place. They could only stare, visibly shaken by the special Jounin's sudden appearance. Realizing they weren't going to answer any time soon, Anko took a different approach. As your superior, I'm ordering you to explain yourselves. Why were you following me? If your reasons aren't solid, I'll have to report this to the higher-ups. Understand? Her tone left no room for argument. That snapped them out of their stunned silence. Both girls gasped in disbelief. You can't do that, they said together. Anko gave them a look that said she absolutely could. Sakura quickly spoke up. We were watching the final rounds when the invasion started. We saw Sasuke being taken by those masked ninja, and then you went after them. We just wanted to help bring him back to the village. Isn't that why you went after him too? She narrowed her eyes slightly, with Ino echoing her expression. Anko met their challenging looks with calm authority. But inside, she was already preparing to break the news gently. Sasuke Uchiha made a choice, she said carefully. He willingly left the village and aligned himself with those responsible for the attack. He's no longer a part of Konoha. Both girls went wide-eyed, the weight of Anko's words slowly sinking in. No. That can't be true. Sasuke cares about us, he wouldn't turn against his home, Ino insisted, her voice full of disbelief. Yeah, Sakura added. There's no way he'd betray Konoha. He's just misunderstood. Anko sighed inwardly and reached into her coat, pulling out a forehead protector with a noticeable slash across it. Their eyes locked on the symbol, clear evidence of Sasuke's choice. Silent tears began to form in their eyes. Why? Why would he do this? Sakura whispered. I don't know. But right now, we need to get back to the village and help however we can, Anko said, turning to leave. The girls followed, quietly wiping away tears. Meanwhile, with Naruko and Yugito. Please forgive us, young ones. Our movements are not under our control, said Tobirama, standing beside his brother, Hashirama. They faced the two blonde kunoichi, Naruko and Yugito, who stood calmly, mentally preparing for what lay ahead. You're right, we're not ordinary Jinan, Naruko replied, a small confident grin on her face. With the power of Kurama and Matatabi behind them, they had more than a few surprises. Naruko suddenly threw a kunai, aimed just wide enough not to hit the reanimated Hokage brothers. Neither of them moved to dodge, expecting nothing from the attack. Below average at best, Hashirama thought, watching the kunai fly harmlessly past. What he didn't see was Naruko forming a hand seal just before the kunai exploded behind them, sending the brothers forward in a blast of force. Seizing the moment, both Naruko and Yugito moved into action. Fire style, fireball jutsu. They called out in unison, each launching a massive fireball toward their opponents. Toburama quickly gathered his focus, forming hand seals to counter. Water style, tearing torrent jutsu. He called, releasing a strong wave of water that clashed with the flames, creating a thick blanket of steam across the rooftop. Using the steam for cover, Hashirama sprang into motion, guided by Toburama's sensory skills. Two figures appeared in the mist, and Hashirama launched into hand signs. Wood style, wood spike jutsu, he whispered. Wooden spikes emerged rapidly, piercing the two shadows. As the steam cleared, Hashirama frowned at the sight of two young shinobi seemingly taken down by his technique. But before he could step closer, both figures vanished in bursts of harmless sparks. Shadow clones, he realized too late. The real Naruko and Yugito came in fast, both landing swift, well-coordinated kicks to Hashirama, pushing him back toward his brother. Toburama watched the unexpected strike with a mix of surprise and admiration. Not many could outmaneuver Hashirama, not even among the strongest. These young kunoichi had done it twice. Their chakra. It feels different. This isn't normal at all, Toburama thought as his brother calmly recovered, unaffected by the surprise blow. You truly are as powerful as the stories say, Hashirama-sama, Toburama-sama, Naruko said, meeting their gaze steadily. We need to be careful, Naruko thought, keeping her focus sharp. If they get serious, this fight could end very quickly. You're right, Kurama spoke in her mind. These two are nothing like the usual opponents. If you and Yugito want to win this, you'll need Matatabi's techniques. Got it, Naruko replied, glancing slightly toward her partner. Yugito-chan, we'll only get through this if you use what Matatabi taught you, she whispered. Yugito nodded subtly, ready to unleash her full strength. You're right, but it's going to take some time to gather the chakra I need, whispered Yugito, trying to think of a way to prepare her technique without revealing to the first Hokage what they truly were. If he figures it out before I'm ready, he could use his wood style to suppress our chakra. Turning slightly, Yugito caught a glimpse of her girlfriend from the corner of her eye and noticed the familiar confident grin on Naruko's face. Don't worry, Yugito-chan. Leave that part to me, said Naruko with a reassuring tone, turning her attention back to their opponents, who stood calmly across from them. Pulling two shuriken from her holster, Naruko threw them forward and quickly moved through a series of hand signs. Shuriken Shadow Clone Jutsu. The two shuriken multiplied into hundreds, surprising the two Hokage once again. Hashirama quickly responded, moving through hand signs before placing his hands firmly on the ground. Wood style, dense forest creation, he called out as tall trees and thick roots began emerging from the rooftop beneath them, filling the entire area within the barrier. One particularly large root rose in front of the brothers, shielding them from the wave of shuriken. Naruko narrowed her eyes, analyzing the suddenly forested terrain surrounding her and Yugito. Well, this definitely makes things a bit more complicated, she thought, keeping her focus on locating the two cage. Naruko-chan, they're right in front of us, Yugito said, pointing toward the last place the Hokage had been seen. They're using the trees for cover so they can strike from hidden angles. Naruko gave a quick nod and created a handful of shadow clones before turning to Yugito. Find a safe place to get ready. My clones and I will keep them occupied while you prepare your jutsu, she said before leaping toward the shadows where the Hokage were hiding. Yugito sighed lightly, then moved swiftly through the trees, searching for a concealed spot, her clones close behind to guard her. Naruko landed on a tree branch facing the two cage, her expression serious as she considered her next move. Her focus was broken by the familiar calm voice of Toburama. How do you know the Shuriken Shadow Clone Jutsu? That's a classified technique from Konoha, not something commonly taught in Kumo, he asked with a raised eyebrow, his tone more curious than confrontational. Naruko nearly smiled but kept her composure. It wasn't often she managed to intrigue someone as analytical as Toburama Senju. You're right. That technique does originate in Konoha, Naruko replied. But your student, Sarutobi, granted me access to the Hokage's private library. I learned a lot during that time, very impressive material, I must say. Hashirama and Toburama's expressions tightened slightly at the mention of Sarutobi but quickly returned to their composed state. I see, Toburama said simply before forming hand signs. Finishing with the bird seal, he activated his technique. Water style, water dragon jutsu. A large dragon-shaped stream of water surged toward Naruko. In response, she quickly performed her own hand signs. Earth style, Earth Spike Jutsu. She called out, leaping from the tree branch as the water dragon pursued her. Landing gracefully on a clear rooftop, she slammed her hands to the surface, causing a sharp stone spike to rise and disrupt the water technique just in time. I hope you're almost ready, Yugito-chan, Naruko thought as she prepared more hand signs and began moving toward the two Hokage once again. Meanwhile, with the rakeage. I need to finish this quickly, thought the rakeage, sidestepping a fast strike from his opponent. Naruko and Yugito will need all the help they can get. He countered with a powerful punch to his opponent's midsection, sending him sliding back a few feet. The rakeage's confident look faded when the other ninja stood back up, seemingly unfazed. What does it take to slow this guy down? He wondered, watching as the rogue shinobi performed hand signs. You are not fit to be a leader, said Dajimu in a steady, emotionless tone. Expansion jutsu, both arms. His arms grew to enormous size as he launched them toward the rakeage. Remaining agile, the rakeage skillfully dodged the massive swings. Who is he to question my leadership? He knows nothing about what it means to protect others, thought the rakeage as he leapt onto one of the enlarged arms and delivered a swift, spinning kick toward Dajimu's head. Dajimu stumbled slightly but regained balance quickly, shrinking his arms back down before throwing a few kunai in retaliation. The rakeage avoided them with ease, but was suddenly caught by a surprise spinning kick from Dajimu, sending him reeling for a moment. You lack the resolve of a true leader, Dajimu stated calmly. A true kage sees their shinobi as tools, disposable and emotionless. The rakeage glared at him, removing his cage robe with determination, his posture strong and unwavering. You're mistaken. A true kage would never view their shinobi that way. Only someone lacking compassion, like Danzo, would think like that, said the rakeage firmly, his voice sharp with disapproval. This finally drew a visible reaction from the rude agent, whose scowl deepened as he responded with rare emotion, frustration. Do not speak ill of Danzo-sama. He was a far more capable leader than anyone else has ever been or ever will be, the rude Onbu stated sternly before returning his expression to the typical, unreadable calm. The rakeage, unfazed, activated his lightning release armor and moved swiftly, landing a powerful strike to the rude Onbu's torso. However, he had to pause his offensive when branches and trees suddenly erupted from the rooftop, forming a dense woodland environment within the confines of the barrier. I need to hurry, Naruko and Yugito could be in serious trouble, thought the rakeage before vanishing in a blur and reappearing in front of another enemy, Dajimu, resuming his taijutsu technique with determined precision. Meanwhile, with B. You know, you rude operatives can be seriously persistent, said B, swinging one of his swords at Tarai. Tarai ducked under the swing and attempted a counterstrike with his kunai, only for B's second sword to deflect it cleanly. The two shinobi momentarily separated, eyeing each other in silence before re-engaging with swift precision. Tarai evaded a direct attack and retaliated using sharp claws generated from the Inuzuka clan's all-fours technique. B leaned back, narrowly avoiding the strike, and used his unconventional style to surprise Tarai, biting his wrist to trap him. Caught off guard by the unexpected move, Tarai gasped, more startled than hurt. You're definitely the most unpredictable shinobi I've ever seen, Tarai said, maintaining a monotone voice with just a hint of surprise. Taking advantage of their position, he raised his kunai and attempted another strike. Despite the awkward angle, B blocked it effortlessly, demonstrating his unusual awareness. Still caught, Tarai grew frustrated. He shifted his weight and used a strategic kick to free his hand, allowing him to retreat. A slight smirk played on his lips as he landed a few feet away. B winced in pain from the unexpected low blow, crouching slightly with cartoonish tears in his eyes. That's definitely not fair play. There should be rules against that kind of tactic, B thought, while Juki sighed within his mind, channeling chakra to help ease the discomfort. Even a tailed beast wouldn't go that far, Juki muttered internally. Gradually straightening, B shot his opponent a sharp glare, now completely serious. Alright, that's enough games. Time to show you what I'm really capable of. B tossed his two swords into the air, followed by 5 more from his back, then leapt upward. In mid-air, he caught each sword with a different part of his body, one under his arm, one in each elbow, another behind his knee, one tucked in place between his leg and torso, and the last in his mouth. Tarai could only stare in disbelief. Without missing a beat, B landed and launched himself forward, spinning at incredible speed. Kumo style, human buzz saw, he declared, his whirlwind form racing toward Tarai. Just before contact, a thick root shot up from the ground, shielding Terai just in time. He came to a stop, noticing the environment rapidly shifting around them as the rooftop transformed into a forested arena. Darn it. I need to wrap this up fast. There's no telling what kind of danger Naruko and Yugito might be in with those two as their opponents, B thought, launching himself over the roots as he continued his unpredictable swordplay, forcing Terai to remain on the defensive. Meanwhile, with Dodai. Why don't you make things easier and just surrender? It'd save us both the effort, said Terra, his tone calm but clearly disinterested. Dodai remained focused, two kunai held in a ready stance. I doubt that will happen. Judging by your laid-back demeanor, I'd guess you're from the Nara clan, right? Dodai asked, keeping his eyes sharp. Terra gave a slow nod, confirming the guess. You got it. But the real reason I'd rather not fight is because I could be using this time to take a nap. That explains it, Dodai replied thoughtfully. Even with the cloaking effect of this barrier, there aren't enough shadows here for you to use easily. You're clever. But actually, I've already found a few, Terra replied with a sleepy smile. The sooner I finish this, the sooner I can rest. Dodai stiffened slightly, eyes on Terra's shadow. Trusting his instincts, he jumped just in time to avoid multiple spear-like projections rising from the tiles beneath him. You overlooked the shadows under the rooftop, Terra pointed out as he formed a hand sign, launching his shadow toward Dodai with renewed focus. Dodai versus Terra. Dodai leapt into the air to evade the approaching shadow and quickly hurled two kunai at Terra. As long as the shadow remained extended, he knew Terra wouldn't be able to move. The kunai struck their target, landing directly in Terra's chest, yet before Dodai could react, Terra's body dissolved into shadows and disappeared into the ground. What kind of clone was that? Dodai wondered, staying alert for a follow-up attack. As if in response to his thoughts, Terra's voice echoed all around him. That was the Nara clan's shadow split technique, came the calm voice. It allows us to separate our shadow from our body and create a clone that can fully utilize our shadow style techniques. Dodai's eyes narrowed. A clone like that could be extremely dangerous, especially in a place filled with shadows. Out of the corner of his eye, he spotted a shadow creeping toward him from beneath the rooftop tiles. Tired of the elusive tactics, Dodai formed hand signs as he sprang away. Lava style, rubber rope jutsu, he whispered. A long strand of rubber extended from his mouth, which he gripped firmly. With a powerful flick, he whipped the rope at the roof tiles, sending several flying away. From a hidden gap below, Terra emerged with one brow raised, examining the new technique. A lava-style user who incorporates rubber into his jutsu? That certainly adds an interesting twist, Terra said, just before leaping from his position as thick roots and trees began to emerge from the rooftop. Dodai looked around at the rapidly changing environment and frowned. This forest gives the Nara too many shadows to manipulate. I'll have to be extra cautious now. Sarutobi vs Orochimaru, same time. Kukaku. Doesn't this bring back memories, sensei? Orochimaru said with a cold smirk, his eyes gleaming with mischief. I've always appreciated a nostalgic reunion. Don't you? Sarutobi's eyes narrowed, his expression firm. The only memory I care to make right now is the end of your twisted ambitions. With that, Sarutobi charged forward, his powerful adamantine staff ready. Orochimaru, seeing that his provocations weren't working, summoned a snake. The serpent opened its mouth to reveal a sword handle, from which Orochimaru pulled the legendary Kusanagi blade. Their weapons clashed with a sharp metallic ring as both formidable shinobi tested each other's strength. After a brief struggle, they separated and prepared for another round. Just then, an eye appeared on Sarutobi's staff, and a deep voice spoke from within. Be careful, Sarutobi. Even in this form, the Kusanagi can harm me, warned Enma, the Monkey King. Sarutobi gave a firm nod and slung Enma over his back, securing him with chakra. Completing a quick series of hand signs, Sarutobi finished in the tiger sign. Fire style, fire dragon jutsu. A long, serpentine flame burst from his mouth, surging toward Orochimaru. In response, Orochimaru drove his sword into the ground and performed his own hand signs. Wind style, vacuum bullet jutsu. He exhaled a massive, compressed gust of air that collided with the fire dragon, slicing through it and causing a large explosion that shook the rooftop. Using the thick smoke as cover, Orochimaru retrieved his blade and charged forward. Sarutobi did the same, and the two clashed again within the smoke. They both leapt back as the roof suddenly filled with growing roots and trees. Orochimaru smiled at the change in terrain. Well now, sensei, he said with a grin, it seems your favorite student has found herself in quite the situation. You know better than anyone what happens when the first Hokage's special jutsu is used. Few can hold their ground against it. Sarutobi gritted his teeth and surged forward once more, determined to protect what mattered most. With Naruko's clone. Naruko's clone sped through the forest surrounding the Hidden Leaf village, her eyes sharp and focused. There you are, she thought, spotting her next destination. Landing gracefully in a clearing, she stood before her surprise targets. Her gaze locked onto the red-haired shinobi standing at the center. Gaara, she said calmly, her tone steady but firm. We need to talk. Previously on Kumo's Black Fox. No, said the first clone, when the time is right for this village to be reformed, we'll be the ones to make it happen, together with the entire Fox clan. For now though, I could go for some grilled snake. What do you think, everyone? The two foxes exchanged amused glances and nodded in agreement. Since you're just clones, it's probably best to stay back unless you want to risk being dismissed, said the elder twin as the clones gracefully leapt into nearby trees, putting some distance between them and the action. Now then, are you ready, little brother? Absolutely, dear brother. Let's do this, replied the younger twin with a calm smile. Sasuke Uchiha has chosen to leave Konohagakure of his own accord. He crossed into the land of rice and joined Odogakure alongside Orochimaru, explained Anko. Her words made the two young ninja widen their eyes in shock before narrowing them with doubt. That can't be true. Sasuke-kun would never turn his back on the village, he cares too much about all of us, said Ino, slipping back into her admiration for Sasuke. Sakura quickly joined in, defending Sasuke's honor with equal passion. We need to stay cautious. If these two opponents get serious, we'll be overwhelmed in moments, thought Naruko as she and Yugito stood face to face with the revived Kijis. No kidding, young one. As proud as I am, even I must admit these two are on another level. If you and your partner want to overcome this, Yugito will need to rely on Matatabi's techniques, said Kurama within Naruko's mind. I agree, Kurama. I'll just have to buy her some time to prepare, thought Naruko, glancing at Yugito from the corner of her eye. Yugito-chan, our best chance is for you to use the technique Matatabi taught you, Naruko whispered. Yugito gave a subtle nod in response. You're right, but I'll need time to gather the chakra. If the Shodai realizes what we are before I'm ready, he could block our connection to our chakra, Yugito whispered, already planning how to move unnoticed. She turned slightly, catching a glimpse of Naruko's confident fox-like grin. Don't worry, Yugito-chan. Leave that to me, said Naruko with reassurance in her voice. You are not fit to lead as a kage, said Dajimu, slowly rising from his crouched stance. A true kage sees no personal attachments to their shinobi. They are tools for missions, disposable assets. He sent a cold glance toward the root Anbu and discarded his robes, standing with firm resolve. You're mistaken. A true kage values the people they lead, they're not tools, they're teammates and lives to be protected. Only someone with a heart of stone would think otherwise, replied the Raikage firmly, referring to Danzo without naming him harshly. His words finally provoked a reaction. The root member's expression shifted, showing genuine frustration. Tarai swung his leg in a sudden motion, catching B off guard. B's expression twisted in discomfort as he stumbled back, clutching his side with exaggerated anime-style tears streaming down his cheeks. That was unexpected. Some moves should probably be off limits in a fair match, B thought, while Juki, watching from within, winced in shared sympathy. Even for us tailed beasts, that looked painful, Juki added, gently channeling chakra to help B recover. B straightened up slowly, eyes narrowing in focused determination. All right, no more playing around. Let's do this properly, he said, tossing two swords into the air, quickly followed by 5 more from his back as he prepared for the next round with renewed energy. That was the Nara clan's shadow split technique, the clone explained calmly. It allows us to disconnect our shadow from our body while simultaneously creating a shadow clone capable of using any shadow-based jutsu. Dodai's expression grew serious at this revelation. In the right environment, such a technique could prove extremely formidable. Out of the corner of his eye, he noticed a shadow slipping toward him beneath the rooftop tiles. Tired of the silent pursuit, Dodai leapt back from the shadow while forming a series of hand signs. Yotan, rubber rope jutsu, he whispered, producing a long strand of rubber from his mouth and gripping it tightly in both hands. With a swift motion, he snapped the rubber rope toward the tiles, scattering them as it struck. From beneath the tiles emerged Terra, an intrigued look on his face as he took in Dodai's new weapon. So, a Yotan user with rubber-based techniques? He mused with a raised brow. This is getting interesting. Kukaku, this brings back memories, doesn't it, sensei? Said Orochimaru, his smile sly and sharp. Across from him, the third Hokage, Sarutobi, stared back, his expression firm and unwavering. The only memories that concern me are the ones I intend to erase, with wisdom and strength, Sarutobi replied as he moved forward with purpose, his adamantine staff gripped in his hands. Realizing his attempt at provoking his former teacher had failed, Orochimaru summoned a snake, which presented him with a sword handle. Drawing the legendary blade, the Kusanagi, Orochimaru met his teacher's charge with a clash of steel. Their weapons rang out as the two seasoned shinobi collided, each testing the other's skill. After a brief moment of pressure, both leapt back, readying themselves once more. Suddenly, an eye appeared on Sarutobi's staff, and Enma's voice echoed softly from it. Be cautious, Sarutobi. Even in this form, the Kusanagi can still cause damage. Sarutobi gave a slight nod and carefully positioned Enma on his back, holding him steady with chakra. Chapter 16. Gaara, the clone said, watching the surprised Jinchuriki closely. We need to talk. Silence settled over the area. Each individual seemed lost in their own thoughts. Tamari did her best to keep her expression composed, though anxiety churned within her. The memory of Gaara's earlier encounter with the blonde figure before them and her teammate played on repeat in her mind. Who is this girl? If she was able to make Shukaku retreat, what else is she capable of? Tamari thought as she subtly readied herself for any unexpected moves. Kankuro was struggling to mask his own concerns. Unlike his sister, his fear was clearly written across his face. What does she want with Gaara? Whatever it is, if things go south, I'm not sticking around. Forget the mission, safety comes first. Gaara, meanwhile, simply observed the clone before him. His thoughts wandered back to the tournament. Deep inside, the spirit of Shukaku stirred, equal parts uneasy and frustrated. Being overpowered by someone, especially another Jinchuriki, was hard to accept. Though prideful, Shukaku wasn't reckless. The thought of facing the host of the nine-tailed fox, even if it was Naruko, filled him with apprehension. Eventually, Gaara spoke in his usual calm voice, "What is it you want from me?" The clone smiled faintly at finally receiving a response. Was our little demonstration really that intimidating? I only wish to speak. But first, I'd like to ask, why would Suna, one of the 5 great shinobi nations, choose to align with Orochimaru to attack Konoha? The question stunned the Sand siblings. Of all the topics they had expected, this wasn't one of them. Tamari hesitated, then answered with a frown, while I don't fully agree with it, our father, the 4th Kazekage, believed it was necessary to prove to the Wind Daimyo that Suna deserved more missions and funding. He thought defeating Konoha would send a strong message. The clone looked toward Gaara and Kankuro, receiving a nod of agreement from both. I understand, the clone said thoughtfully. However, the plan was flawed from the beginning. Even if you had succeeded, it wouldn't have lasted. Your father was taken out of the picture by Orochimaru weeks ago. What? Tamari and Kankuro gasped in shock, while Gaara simply raised an eyebrow, seemingly processing the news. Orochimaru himself visited our village to discuss the alliance, Tamari said, disbelief in her voice. Why would he? That deceiver. She added, struggling to hold back her emotions. It's the truth, said Naruko's clone gently. Orochimaru only cares about 2 things, his own twisted version of eternal life, and his personal grudge against Konoha. He doesn't care who gets hurt in the process. As long as he gets what he wants, he's willing to use anyone. The clone quietly observed their reactions. Tamari's face reflected a complex blend of frustration and sorrow, grieving the loss of her father, yet seething over the betrayal. Kankuro was visibly angry, his thoughts clearly focused on justice and retribution. Gaara remained unreadable, though it was clear he wasn't emotionally affected by the loss. Why are you telling us all this? Tamari asked, regaining her composure. What do you gain from it? Her question snapped Kankuro out of his spiral of thoughts, and even Gaara leaned in slightly, intrigued. The clone nodded in acknowledgement before responding. The reason I'm sharing this with you is simple, I want to help. The Sand siblings were visibly surprised by this statement, but before any of them could respond, the clone continued. I once lived in this village, and much like Gaara, I was misunderstood and avoided because of what I carried inside me. I stopped keeping track of how many times I was turned away from shops or treated poorly by others. People called me things like the cursed child. But that wasn't even the most difficult part. Every year on my birthday, October 10th, the village would hold a festival to commemorate the day the Nine Tails was sealed away by my father, Minato Namikaze. That same night, some villagers, after having too much to drink, would form a group intending to finish what the fourth Hokage began. Unfortunately, they often found me. The only reason I made it through those nights was because an assigned guardian would eventually step in to protect me. Those memories made me feel completely disconnected from this village. I used to wish I could walk away and never look back. But even though I once felt that strongly, I now realize that change needs to come from a place of strength, not destruction. That's why I want to shape the future of this village myself, not let it fall due to someone else's harmful plans. Temari and Kankuro felt a chill run down their spines as they listened to the blonde shinobi from Kumo. As children of the Kazekage, they had always received a certain level of respect in Suna. While they had witnessed how others treated Gaara, it was mostly limited to whispers and nervous glances when their father or an escort wasn't around. Hearing what Naruko had endured made them feel a newfound protectiveness, one they hadn't realized they had until now. Gaara remained silent as he observed his blonde counterpart, showing no outward reaction. But internally, a storm of emotion brewed. When Naruko first began to speak, Gaara felt indifferent. After all, he had lived through many of the same experiences in his own village. However, when she shared the depth of her hardships, especially the physical and emotional pain, he paused. Gaara had experienced threats and challenges, but they began much later in his life and were never to that extent. From the look in Naruko's eyes, it was clear that her struggles were more frequent and deeply scarring. He couldn't help but wonder how she managed to hold herself together through all of it. "How did you not lose yourself in the pain?" Gaara finally asked. "You mean, how did I not become someone driven by anger like you were?" Naruko replied with a light, understanding laugh. Gaara frowned at the remark, but said nothing. "It's actually a story I don't tell often. I mentioned how I was treated, but there's something I left out. One night, things got so bad that, had I not been a Jinchuriki, I might not have made it through. But looking back, I'm actually grateful. I know that sounds strange, but if that hadn't happened, I might never have met Kurama." The Sand siblings looked puzzled. Naruko smiled gently and clarified, "Kurama is the true name of the nine-tailed fox." Temari and Kankuro paled slightly at the revelation. Their only understanding of Jinchuriki came from Gaara and his bond with Shukaku, which had always been unstable. The idea that a Jinchuriki could not only communicate with their inner spirit but also work in harmony with it was something they had never considered, both fascinating and a little overwhelming. Temari eventually found her voice. You're saying the Nine Tails helped you?" Naruko nodded. "Yes. Kurama was the one who helped me keep my balance through the toughest times. He trained me, guided me, and most importantly, he believed in me when no one else did. I owe so much to him. It might seem surprising, but not all Jinchuriki lose control. And deep down, I don't believe you've lost yourself either, Gaara." Before Gaara could respond, Naruko continued, "I understand you more than you think. I know you act the way you do because it's how you've learned to protect yourself. But you're not alone in this. Temari and Kankuro are your siblings by blood, but you have another sibling in me. We share the same burden. We both understand the weight of being a Jinchuriki. It's hard, I know. But you have to let go of the mask you wear. If you keep holding on to that pain, it'll eventually consume everything that makes you who you truly are. You'll become the very image others unfairly see you as. But you're not that person, Gaara. You never were." Gaara looked at Naruko in stunned silence. Not only had she seen through the facade he had kept up for so long, but she also voiced the same thoughts that had quietly lingered in his heart for years. If he truly wanted to find peace and meaning in his existence, he would have to shed the persona he had built around himself. Maybe. Just maybe. Naruko was right. The Naruko clone observed the shifting emotions in her fellow Jinchuriki's eyes. She understood how difficult it was to drop one's protective facade. She herself had moments when her cheerful, carefree demeanor re-emerged out of habit, but those episodes were becoming less common with time. "You don't need to decide anything right now, Gaara. I can imagine what must be running through your mind, so I'll give you space to reflect. However, I do recommend returning to Suna as soon as possible. If you're looking to recover your father's remains, they're located in a small ravine 10 miles west of the city gates," the clone advised gently, offering one final respectful nod to the Sand siblings before vanishing in a puff of smoke. The trio of Suna shinobi remained in the clearing for a few quiet moments, each lost in thought. To their surprise, it was Gaara who first broke the silence. "Temari, Kankuro. I'm sorry. The older siblings were taken aback by the unexpected apology but quickly recalled what Naruko had said about Gaara's emotional mask. In unison, they silently hoped this would mark the return of the brother they had longed for. Without another word, the three turned and headed toward the west gate. With Naruko. Naruko exhaled sharply as she landed from yet another leap, dodging animated tree branches that continued to strike at her. This had been going on for a while. After neutralizing the Nidaim's water dragon technique, she had attempted a coordinated assault, a direct frontal attack supported by a shadow clone flanking from behind. Unfortunately, it hadn't gone as planned. The Nidaime had sensed the clone's chakra signature well in advance and had responded by summoning a clone of his own to intercept it. With her clone eliminated, Naruko had been exposed, and the Shodai capitalized quickly. He unsealed a broad blade from a storage seal on his wrist and made a swift move to incapacitate her. Only a quick substitution had saved her from the attack. From there, things had only grown more challenging. The Shodai ceased direct confrontation and instead manipulated the surrounding forest to act as his ally. Meanwhile, Tobirama, aware of his brother's strategy, slipped into the shadows and launched occasional water-based techniques to pressure Naruko. This is getting tough. Hurry, Yugito-chan. I'm reaching my limit, Naruko thought, leaping over another torrent of water. With a swift burst of chakra, she spun and hurled a handful of kunai into the shadows. The Nidaime emerged, effortlessly dodging them, though the evasion wasn't necessary. Naruko dropped to one knee, her breathing strained, as she looked up at the legendary brothers. I have to say, I'm impressed by your skills at such a young age, said Hashirama as the trees settled and the area quieted. You remind me a lot of myself when I was younger. His smile was kind but faint, as if it took effort to maintain. That said, it appears you're running out of energy. Indeed, added Tobirama, arms crossed and expression calm. You show the same determination as my brother, but with a strategic mind closer to my own in my younger days. Despite the situation, Naruko offered a tired smirk. I'm honored, Hashirama-sama, Tobirama-sama. But I'm not finished yet. Tobirama gave a small shake of his head. It seemed the young kunoichi was even more like Hashirama than he initially realized. Hashirama's smile grew a touch, though the strain behind it became more noticeable. You fought admirably. There's no shame in recognizing when a battle cannot be won. Unfortunately, due to the talismans placed on us, we're no longer in control of our actions. These seals were designed to suppress our free will, turning us into mere tools. However, Tobirama continued, the one who revived us underestimated our strength. I created this technique and the talismans used with it. Full control over the summoned individual requires significant force of will and chakra. The current user lacks the ability to completely override our personalities. I see, Naruko murmured, her mind already racing. So even though they control your movements, your thoughts are still your own. That explains the hesitation during our battle. And your strained expressions. She really does share your analytical thinking, Hashirama said with a chuckle. It appears so, Tobirama replied with a faint, rare smile. The moment quickly passed, however, as his body suddenly lunged toward Naruko, a ninjato materializing from a seal on his armor. It seems this may be the final moment. For what it's worth. I'm sorry, he said as he raised his weapon. Let's hope this works, Naruko thought, pulling out a scroll hidden beneath her cloak. As Tobirama's blade closed in, a brilliant flash of lightning sparked in front of her, her new weapon intercepting the strike. The energy blade not only blocked the attack but cut clean through the ninjato with ease. Caught off guard, Tobirama couldn't halt his momentum. Naruko seized the opportunity, slicing forward with the lightning blade, Raijin, disrupting Tobirama's summoned form. Landing lightly on her feet, Naruko watched as Tobirama's form began to pull itself together again. So lightning doesn't neutralize the technique the way it would with regular Earth-style chakra. Good to know, she thought as she steadied herself for another round. Before she could move, her eyes widened as memories flooded in from her shadow clones, the one who had spoken with Gaara and one guarding Yugito. Perfect timing. Time to finish this. Deactivating Raijin, Naruko gripped the hilt in both hands and began forming hand signs, ending with the ram seal. Launching herself into the air, she reactivated the Raijin and spun it into a reverse grip as she descended. Raijin no Ken, Imperial Field of the Thunder God. She called, stabbing the blade into the roof as a surge of energy burst outward, marking the beginning of her next move. The rooftop trembled subtly, immediately putting Hashirama and the newly restored Tobirama on high alert. In an instant, numerous spikes of radiant lightning erupted from the ground, pinning the brothers in place at various points along their bodies. However, unlike typical lightning-based techniques that fade quickly, these energy constructs remained solid, holding the two several feet above the ground in mid-air. That's quite an impressive technique, Hashirama noted calmly, though his reanimated body flickered slightly from the energy surging through it. But I must admit, I'm curious, how did you come into possession of the Raijin? Last I saw, Toburama still held it. Toburama's sharp glance at Naruko only confirmed he shared the same question. Indeed, Toburama said in his usual measured tone, though a slight edge crept into his voice. That blade was mine. How do you now wield it? Your blade? Naruko responded from her kneeling position, voice firm yet composed. The Raijin has never truly belonged to you. It was taken from my clan, the Uzumaki clan, and I have reclaimed it as part of my heritage. You're an Uzumaki? Hashirama asked, his surprise evident. Yes. My name is Naruko Uzumaki Namikaze. I am the last living member of both the Uzumaki and Namikaze clans. This blade is my birthright, and I've taken it back in honor of my ancestors. Hashirama's eyes narrowed thoughtfully. If you're an Uzumaki, then that means. Yes, Naruko confirmed with a soft nod. I am your distant granddaughter, Hashirama-sama, and also your grandniece, Toburama-sama. I may not know the full path that connects our bloodline through the child you and Lady Mito took in. But I do know you are my family, even if only by lineage. With the rakeage. This is starting to wear on me, thought A, the rakeage, as he narrowly avoided another massive fist hurtling toward him. Ever since the forest had formed atop the rooftop, the terrain had worked against him. Though he possessed superior speed and likely greater strength than his opponent, the dense trees neutralized much of his advantage. The forest limited his movement, reducing his ability to counter effectively, though it did help him dodge the oversized strikes from Dajimu. A was tempted to bulldoze his way through the forest to confront his opponent directly, but years of dealing with Naruko's unpredictable nature had taught him that acting recklessly often led to bigger problems. Dodging yet another massive punch, A saw an opening. He grabbed the enormous hand with both of his and pulled with all his strength. Caught off guard, Dajimu was yanked from the shadows and met with a powerful, lightning-charged elbow strike. Elbow, A shouted as he delivered the blow, launching Dajimu into one of the surrounding trees. Just as A was preparing to press his advantage, Dajimu leapt up into the canopy overhead. "You're better than I expected," Dajimu called out, his voice echoing from above. "But I think it's time we bring this match to a close." A braced himself, ready for what might come next. Kaden, blazing human bullet impact, Dajimu shouted as his now enlarged form, cloaked in fire, plummeted toward the rakeage with blazing force. But it wasn't about to back down. Launching himself upward, he concentrated his lightning chakra into his vambrace. Energy surged along his right arm, and with his left hand reinforcing his stance, he met the incoming flame head-on. Lariat, A roared, blasting Dajimu into the sky and up against the top of the chakra barrier. Before it could fully assess the result, a sudden pulse of Matatabi's chakra drew his attention, coming from the direction of the two young shinobi. "That's not good," A muttered, already leaping through the trees. "Naruko, Yugito, hang in there. I'm coming." With B. Unlike his brother, B was firmly on the offensive. His unpredictable fighting style left Jirai struggling to respond. Though the root operative had managed to avoid the worst of B's attacks, he wasn't coming out unscathed. B's seven swords dance had left its mark. "This one's persistent," B thought as he kept up the pressure. Jirai took cover behind a thick root, trying to buy himself a moment of clarity. But B wasn't about to give him that luxury. With a surge of lightning chakra into his blades, B unleashed his human buzzsaw technique, reducing the tree to splinters. Jirai barely managed to substitute himself to avoid the brunt of it. "All right, no more warm-ups," B thought, catching each of his swords midair and returning them to their sheaths in one smooth motion. "Time to get serious." "You ready, Juki?" B asked internally. "Let's wrap this up. Then you can go help Naruko and Yugito," Juki responded. With a flare of energy, B was surrounded by a protective chakra shroud shaped like a bull, a single tail swaying behind him. Jirai had just a second to react before B's chakra-empowered arm slammed into the area near him. The shockwave was intense, and Jirai was knocked away by a swipe of the chakra tail. Though Jirai tried to get up, the impact had clearly worn him down. The strain of facing a tailed beast's chakra was starting to show. B closed the distance, moving like a blur. "Lariat," B said quietly, his voice calm and focused, as he launched a precise strike that sent Jirai flying out of sight. Without wasting a second, B dashed through the forest, following the trail of chakra toward where he knew Naruko and Yugito awaited. If anyone had been observing the encounter between the two shinobi, they might have mistaken it for a strategic match of shogi rather than a battle. Both combatants had quickly come to realize that they were evenly matched in terms of skill and talent. It became clear that the deciding factor would be which of them could outwit the other. Though there was minimal direct confrontation, a dynamic and intense mental contest unfolded, each tactician carefully testing the other's limits. Amid the shadows cast by the surrounding forest, Terra swiftly withdrew into the thick foliage, aiming to trap Dodai with an array of intricate shadow techniques. Dodai, however, demonstrated his expertise and resourcefulness, skillfully evading Terra's signature jutsu, even in an environment dominated by shade. Using his mud clones and yotan, rubber rope techniques with precision, Dodai repeatedly drew Terra into the open. Terra responded with his shadow split technique, nearly catching Dodai in a well-executed feint that required Dodai to react swiftly to avoid multiple simultaneous attacks. Despite their best efforts, neither could gain a clear advantage for long. Each move was met with a counter, every plan with a clever response. At one point, Dodai leapt into the air, narrowly dodging another attempt by Terra to entrap him. With practiced motion, he swung his rubber rope toward the shifting shadows, only for Terra to disappear and reappear in another concealed location. Without pause, Dodai created 2 more rubber ropes and launched them in the new direction, but again, Terra slipped away, ever elusive. Time to draw him into the open, Dodai thought as he quickly performed a sequence of hand signs, finishing with the tiger seal. Kaden, flame whirlwind. He called, surrounding himself in swirling fire. Guiding the blaze with his advanced control over nature energy, he directed the flames outward, causing the surrounding trees to become enveloped in heat and light, eliminating the shadows that concealed his opponent. Dodai's strategy paid off. Terra, forced into the open, leapt down from his perch to engage Dodai directly, wielding his flat-tipped blade with intent. However, just as he approached, several rubber ropes emerged from the heated forest, quickly wrapping around him and restricting his movement. Surprised, Terra looked up at Dodai. How? Dodai gave a confident smile as he withdrew a kunai from his pouch. These ropes aren't ordinary. They're highly resilient, able to endure significant pressure and remain intact. Throughout our match, I continually created and discarded them, but they were never truly useless. Terra narrowed his eyes, slowly piecing the puzzle together. Wait. You didn't just discard them. You concealed something within them, didn't you? Not exactly, Dodai replied. I've trained extensively in nature transformation. I can control any rubber I've created, even from a distance. I use the ropes to craft rubber clones, positioning them discreetly to act the moment you stepped into view. Terra fell quiet for a moment, then closed his eyes, silently acknowledging Dodai's victory with dignity. With the confrontation resolved, Dodai took a calming breath and used a pulse of chakra to locate Naruko and Yugito. Without delay, he moved toward them, hoping he would arrive in time. Elsewhere, with Naruko. You're my granddaughter? Hashirama asked, astonishment clear in his wide-eyed expression. His brother, Tobirama, seemed equally surprised, struggling to mask his reaction. While the young kunoichi before them wasn't from either of their direct family lines, she still carried a connection that neither had expected. Yes, Hashirama-sama, Naruko replied respectfully, rising from her crouched position, leaving the Raijin firmly planted in the ground. As I mentioned, I don't know the full details of how my lineage connects back to the child you and Lady Mito adopted. All I know is what was written in a letter Lady Mito left inside an Uzumaki heirloom chest. I was actually hoping you might be able to share more about my ancestry before your time here ends. Mito-sama didn't even mention the name of the ancestor I'm descended from. Of course, said Hashirama with a warm, gentle smile, his earlier seriousness fading into calm affection. Since Mito-chan was never able to have children of her own, we were more than happy to welcome the last of her clan into our family. Young Kaito Uzumaki was just 6 when he joined us, but even at that age, he treated Mito-chan, Tobirama, myself, and every member of our clan with genuine love and kindness. I wish I had more time to share his story, but what I can offer you now is the tale of your lineage. Kaito eventually married a young woman named Rina Terumi. She came from Kirigakure, but she made Konoha her home to be with him. Terumi? As in the Terumi clan from Kirigakure, known for their dual Kekkei Genkai, Yotan and Futon? Naruko asked, her eyes wide with surprise. She hadn't expected her roots to be tied to such prominent families. Yes, Hashirama replied, his smile unwavering. Kaito and Rina had 2 wonderful daughters, Tsunade and Mei. The two were always spirited and competitive, each striving to grow stronger. When they began at the academy, they were allowed to choose the family name they wished to carry. Tsunade, inspired by Tobirama and Mie, chose the Senju name. Mei, who resembled her mother greatly in both appearance and personality, carried on the Terumi name. That is as much as I can share. My time ended not long after the girls began their training. Naruko paused, taking in every word and committing the names of her relatives to memory. She silently promised herself that no matter what, she would bring her family together again. Thank you, Hashirama-sama. This means more to me than I can express. You're very welcome, young one. Naruko turned to the brothers, determination shining in her eyes. Now all that's left is to uncover the remaining connections in my family tree and bring everyone back together. You will succeed, Tobirama said, speaking for the first time since discovering Naruko's identity. You carry the legacy of the first and second Hokage. I believe in your strength and your heart, just as we believed in ours so long ago. A single tear traced down Naruko's cheek as she looked at her grandfather and granduncle, perhaps for the final time. Thank you, Tobirama Jiji. I'll do my best to make both of you proud. With a determined smile, she stepped back slightly. Now, Yugito-chan. From the nearby trees, Yugito emerged, her hands glowing with deep blue flames. With a respectful nod to the two legendary shinobi, she gracefully swept her hands outward, sending forth a shimmering arc of fire. Nico style, Reaper Soul Blade. As the flame passed through Hashirama and Tobirama, their forms shimmered before gently dissolving, revealing the bodies that had been used in the summoning. Floating above the dust were their peaceful spirits. Hashirama looked around, slightly puzzled by the release of his spirit. Naruko noticed his confusion and reached into her jacket, pulling out a sleek black scroll. The surface appeared blank, but as she unrolled it, a sophisticated sealing array revealed itself. The technique Yugito-chan used is designed to release the soul from the reanimation jutsu, but instead of allowing it to drift away, it keeps the soul in this world until it can be sealed safely. In this case, we'll be placing your spirits into the scroll, ensuring no one can summon you again. Tobirama gave a quiet nod of understanding, while Hashirama's expression softened with pride. You two make a remarkable team. I have no doubt you'll grow into exceptional shinobi. But Naruko, don't be sad. You're doing what's right, for us and for the future. Know that I'm proud of you. Even though I will be sealed away, I'll be watching over you always. As will I, Tobirama added, his voice calm and assured, as both brothers looked on while Naruko began the sealing process. With a swift series of hand seals, Naruko pressed her palm onto the scroll laid out before her. Fuinjutsu, Path of the Pure World, she spoke calmly. As the words left her lips, the first two symbols on the scroll illuminated with a radiant golden hue. The chakra-infused scroll began drawing in the ethereal forms of Hashirama and Tobirama. At that moment, Naruko noticed that the other three shinobi from Kumagakure had arrived within the barrier. Once the sealing technique was complete, Naruko rolled the scroll up carefully and tucked it securely inside her jacket. You're a little late, the excitement's already passed, Naruko said with a small chuckle before her expression turned more serious. What's the situation with the old master? Remember, it's important we ensure he gets through this safely. No matter how frustrated I might feel toward him, his presence is still important. I'm not sure, he responded, letting the glowing energy around him fade as he stopped channeling Juki's chakra. After you and Yugito split off to engage the first and second, the rest of us had to take care of the root Anbu supporting Orochimaru. I still don't quite understand why we need to keep the former Hokage safe, added, his own energy cloak dispersing, but I trust your judgment, Naruko. Thank you, Raikage-sama, Naruko replied with a respectful nod. I'll explain everything once this is over. For now, we've got someone to stop. The remaining four Kumagakure shinobi nodded in agreement, and together with Naruko, they dashed toward the source of Sarutobi's and Orochimaru's chakra signatures. Dear YouTube family. That's all for now, thanks for sticking around. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like, share, and drop a comment below. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Until next time. Stay awesome, stay weeb. Regards. 6 Path Weeb.